advice do you have to homeowners?
Practicing that preparedness. Starting the conversation now is always going to be a benefit to any association out there.
And welcome to Recovery Report Live. I'm Dan Odess, president of GlobalPro, where we manage risk to recovery, and we have managed more than $1 billion in that recovery. We've also helped more than 1,000 community associations place insurance and hundreds of thousands of dollars in premiums. We are your one-stop shop for insurance needs. That's what we want to do. We want to make sure that we're providing you actionable information every single week, things you can use, whether you're a property manager, a board member, or a business owner. We want to make sure that you have the information you